Hi, welcome to my channel. For today's video, I'm going to be talking about all the books that I read in the month of May. So I read a total of 9 books, 8 of them being like full-length books and 1 of them being a novella. So I was actually surprised that I read that many. I didn't realize that I had read that many. I felt like this month, it just seemed really slow for me in terms of reading. Like I felt like I wasn't getting through books very quickly. And then I realized that I actually read quite a bit. To me, 9 is a lot. I don't normally read that many books. I have been doing pretty good lately with reading a good amount of books, but most of the time I read a lot less than that. So yeah, I felt like that was pretty good for me. So yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and go through each of the books, give like a brief summary, some brief thoughts, and my rating. So the first book I read, I think I've briefly mentioned it before. I think it was like in a TBR video maybe, but I read Blind Pass by Tegan Hunter. So this book is a hockey romance. It's the second one in a series of interconnected standalones. I read the first one, I think in April, and I really enjoyed it. I've talked about it before. So yeah, I finally picked up this one and I really liked it. I thought it was really cute. This book follows Ryan and Rhodes, and they're the best friends of the couple in the previous book, and basically the two of them get married in Vegas while they were drunk, and the next morning they wake up and realize what they did. But Rhodes is obviously like a famous hockey player and Ryan is actually an influencer, so she has a really big following, and she posted about their marriage online, and so now everyone kind of knows about it. So they're kind of like stuck in this marriage and they can't really like do anything about it now because everybody knows, and it would just make them look bad if they get it annulled. So the two of them decide to stay married for at least a year. So obviously this book is a marriage of convenience, and it was just so good. It's kind of a Beauty and the Beast retelling in a way. I don't really like to call books retellings because I don't like the idea of retellings, or I don't like knowing that a book is a retelling of something. If I know that it is, that's just kind of like stuck in my head as I'm reading it. But this one was very obvious as I was reading it, so I just kept thinking about that. But basically Ryan, like I said, she's an influencer, so she's like this very beautiful girl. She's very into like makeup and all that type of stuff and like beauty. And then Rhodes, like I said, he's a hockey player and he has a scar on his face, and that's like a huge insecurity for him. And so that's kind of where the whole like Beauty and the Beast thing comes in. And then they're kind of stuck together for a year. They're living in the same house because they're married. So it has kind of like similar parallels to Beauty and the Beast. That's what it made me think of. But yeah, this book was really good. I enjoyed it a lot. And yeah, I really have enjoyed this series so far. So I am excited to read the next one that comes out in July. And I rated this book 4.25 stars. So then after that, I read Book Lovers by Emily Henry, and this book was so good. I loved it so much. I did do a reading vlog for this, so if you want to know a little bit more about my thoughts, you can watch that. It does have spoilers in it, so I went kind of more in depth about certain things, but this book, I loved it a lot. It was so good. I mean, it was Emily Henry, so I kind of expected it to be really amazing. But this one just came out at the beginning of May, so I read it as soon as it was released, and it basically follows Charlie and Nora. They both work in publishing and they're kind of rivals, and Charlie's an editor and Nora is a literary agent, so they kind of have like crossed paths before. But Nora's sister decides that she wants them to go on a vacation together, so they go on this month-long vacation to this small town in North Carolina, and basically they start kind of doing like little small town things that you see in like small town romance books or romance movies, and it's just really cute. I really loved it a lot. I wouldn't say it's a rom-com, but it definitely had like just cute, like funny things that happened. The banter was so good between Charlie and Nora, and I just really love the two of them together. But basically when they get to this small town, Nora runs into Charlie and she kind of keeps like seeing him a lot, and eventually like there's this obvious connection between them. But Nora was a really interesting character. I liked her a lot just because she puts a lot on herself. She's an older sister. She's very like protective of her younger sister, and you can tell she's like very anxious all the time, and she's kind of the person that doesn't really get the happy ending most of the time. She's been dumped like 4 times, and so she kind of just like expects that now, but Charlie is like the perfect person for her, and this book was just so good. It was so cute, it was so funny, but it also has like some heartbreak in it, and I just loved it a lot. I would highly recommend this book. This one was a 5-star book for me, and I would say that it was my favorite this month. So then after that, I read One Timer, which is also by Tegan Hunter. This is the next book that follows Blind Pass. This one follows one of the teammates and then the sister of the main character from the first book. And basically the two main characters from the first book are getting married now, and it's their wedding, and these two characters meet at the wedding and they have a one-night stand, and she ends up being pregnant. So it is a pregnancy trope, but it was really good. I really liked this one a lot. I thought it was so cute. This one, I rated it 4 stars. I did really enjoy it. My only thing with Tegan Hunter's books is I feel like she could go a little bit deeper with some stuff that happens. These characters, like, they seem to have a lot that has gone on in their lives, and like insecurities and stuff, or just like past trauma that gets mentioned, but I feel like she doesn't really go like that deep into it. And I just feel like if she went a little bit deeper, like it would just elevate these books a little bit more and they would just be like that much better. But they are just really good, like fast-paced books. I've said it before, but these books have definitely helped me like when I didn't really know what to read. They kind of helped like get me out of a reading slump. So yeah, they're really good. I have loved these books so far. I've loved Tegan Hunter so far, so now I want to read just more of her books. She has like other series that I'm really looking forward to reading eventually. But yeah, I would definitely recommend her books if you like hockey romance. So then after that, I finally read the Fulton You series. I have talked about this series before. I have put it on TBRs before. I finally read it and I loved it. I thought it was so good. I did do a reading vlog while I was reading these, and I'm currently in the process of editing that, so I think it's gonna go up after this probably. But yeah, I did a reading vlog for these, so I went like kind of more in depth there, but they were so good. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about them now, but I won't go like too in detail because I do have that reading vlog. But starting with the first book, The Perfect First, this one follows Reese and Seth, and Reese is kind of the star like football player of their college. These are all football college romance, and so basically Reese plays on the football team and Seth is kind of like the quiet, like smart girl, and she hasn't really like socialized with many people or made many friends. She's kind of just like there for school, and her dad let her go to this university, but once the school year is up, he's expecting her to come back to Boston, where she's from, and finish up her PhD program there. And so basically she's tired of kind of being controlled by her father, so she creates this list of all these things she wants to do by the end of the school year, and the biggest one being that she wants to lose her virginity. And so she decides to start with that one because it's like the biggest one on her list, so she kind of wants to start with like the biggest thing and then like work her way down. And so basically she puts out this ad kind of on accident, a little bit, like she accidentally submits it, but it's this ad kind of looking for someone to help her with that, and she sets up like interviews, and so she goes to this coffee shop to interview all these guys, and then Reese shows up, but he's there for a different meeting and he mistakes her for the person that he's supposed to be meeting with, and they start talking and she asks him kind of like some personal and invasive questions, and then he doesn't really get what's going on, but obviously they kind of clear things up, and he kind of is worried about her, like he's worried that someone's gonna take advantage of her because of this situation, and so he ends up being the one to help her because he feels bad and he wants to help her through these things. But he decides to help her with her list and not with like losing her virginity. Like he leaves that off the table, but everything else he wants to help her with. And so through that they start to get closer. They do start to become friends, which I really loved because it is kind of friends to lovers. And this one was just really good. It was so cute. I loved these characters a lot. I just really enjoyed reading this book, and yeah, I'm just really glad that I finally read it. This one I would say was a 5-star read. It was really good. I really liked kind of everything about it. I just thought it was a really cute story, and I feel like it was a really good start to this series, and it just made me excited to read the rest of the books. So then after that, obviously I read book 2, which was The Second We Met. This one was my least favorite of the series. I didn't really enjoy it as much. At the beginning, I was really like slow to get through it. It took me like 2 days to get through like the first like 70 to 100 pages, I think. And yeah, it just kind of wasn't super interesting to me. But after that, it did pick up and I did enjoy reading it overall. This one is Enemies to Lovers. So it follows one of Reese's friends and roommates. Each of these books follows like a different guy. They all live in the same house together. They're all friends and they play on the same football team. And so this one follows Nyx and their neighbor. Her name is Elle. And for the past like year or so, she just gets annoyed with them. Like they're always throwing parties and stuff, and she's just like kind of tired of it, and she always calls the cops on them, and Nyx doesn't like that, obviously. And they actually met when Elle first moved into her house. She accidentally walked into their house thinking that was her new house. She walked in on Nyx in the shower, and so basically like that kind of put them off to a bad start. And after that, obviously with the parties and everything and her constantly calling the cops, that just kind of created more like problems between them. And then one of the last times that she calls the cops, Nyx actually gets arrested, so that kind of like hurts his image a little bit because he is a senior and he's about to get drafted, and his dad is kind of just expecting him to look really good, so a good team will want him. So basically his dad makes him sign up for this community service project, and Elle is also there working on the project. He obviously doesn't want her to know why he's there, because he's not really there because he cares. He's there to like help his image. But obviously they kind of start to spend time together because they're kind of forced together, and they kind of become friends and then slowly start to fall for each other. So yeah, this one was cute. I did like it, but like I didn't love it. It wasn't as good as the rest of the books. It was just kind of okay compared to the other books, but I did still rate it 4 stars. This couple just kind of seemed like a couple that wouldn't last to me. I kind of talked about this in my reading vlog also, but they just kind of seemed like a couple that would break up after the epilogue. But I did still like it. I am glad that I read it, and it did obviously like feature the other characters and kind of like hint at what was to come in the other books, so I really enjoyed that. So then after that I read the third book, which was The Third Best Thing. This one was so good. I loved it a lot. This one was my favorite of the series, and I kind of expected that going into the series because this one is the one that I feel like is talked about the most. This one follows Burke and Jules, and so Burke is another one of the teammates and roommates, and then Jules lives across the street. She's actually Elle's best friend, and basically Jules started writing letters to Burke, and he doesn't know who the letters are coming from, but he's actually friends with Jules. Like they start to get to know each other because of Elle and Nyx, and he decides to ask her to help him find the girl who's writing the letters, and she agrees to help him even though she's obviously the one who's been writing them. And then through that they start to get closer and fall for each other too. So this one is also Friends to Lovers, which I really loved, and it was just so cute. It was so good. Both of them have gone through a lot. Jules's family isn't very nice to her because of the way that she looks, and they're constantly like making comments about her weight, and she just kind of like doesn't really have a good relationship with her mom and her sister, and she kind of like avoids being around them. And then Burke has a really interesting backstory too that I don't want to get too much into. Before this book you don't really know much about him, and then you kind of read his whole story, and I really loved that, and I just really loved both of them as characters. And so this one was just really good. It was really cute, really sweet. I just loved it a lot. And so this one, like I said, it was my favorite of the series, and it was also a 5-star read. So then next I read book 4, which is The Fourth Time Charm. This one follows Marissa and LJ. Again, LJ is one of the friends and teammates, and then Marissa is his best friend, and they have been best friends since they were like 8 years old. And so basically now she's living with him. This actually takes place after Reese and Nyx have graduated, so now Burke and LJ are living in the house together, and then they have another roommate, and then Marissa moves in with them. And so the two of them both like each other, but they both think that the other one doesn't feel the same way. And so it was kind of annoying to read that because like they would both have these thoughts about how much they like the other one. But basically they've been best friends since they were really little. They have gone through a lot together. And so at this point they're seniors in college, and Marissa's dad is actually the football coach, but she doesn't really have a good relationship with her dad, and now he's kind of trying to have a relationship with her, but she doesn't really want to. But because her dad is the coach, she's able to get free tuition. His only condition is that she has to come have dinner with him once a week, and she brings LJ with her to these dinners. And so the coach is kind of taking out his frustration on LJ, and it's causing problems for him because he's a senior and he wants to get drafted, but the coach isn't really letting him play because of his like involvement with Marissa. So yeah, this one was also really good. It was a really enjoyable book. I loved that it was childhood friends to lovers. We see Marissa and LJ like since the first book. You get like little like pieces of them, so I was so excited to get to their book just because of the little bit that we had seen before. Like they just are really cute together. They would kind of banter a lot because they're such good friends. But yeah, but this one was really good. I did really like it a lot. I did rate this one 4.5 stars. It just wasn't as good as the first and the third one, but it was still a really cute book. So this next book, like I really need to explain myself here. I feel like I'm like a year behind, but I finally read Ice Planet Barbarians by Ruby Dixon. I had no intention of ever reading this book. Like it started off as a joke between me and my cousins. We said we were going to start a book club, and we said we were going to read Ice Planet Barbarians for our book club. So this was around Christmas time. We were completely joking, or so I thought, but then just the other week, my cousin gave me this book. Like she gave it to me, so I told her I would read it. But I told her if I read it, she had to read it too. But I was the first one to read it. I gave them my review. I told them that if I had to go through reading this book, then they did too. But I mean, basically, like this girl is kidnapped with a bunch of other girls, and they end up on this planet. And one of the girls, her name's Georgie, she is kind of sent out to, I don't even know, I guess to like see what's there and like see what they can do to like survive or help themselves or get back home or whatever. And then this alien that's there ends up finding her, and he decides that like she's his mate or whatever, and he kind of like, that's, yeah, I don't know, that's kind of it. Like, there wasn't really a plot here. I just can't believe I read this book. Like, as I was reading it, I couldn't really take it seriously. I would be reading it and then I would just be like, what is this? Why am I reading this? And I kind of kept laughing at it because the storyline was just so ridiculous. And I think it's supposed to be that way. Like, it's meant to not obviously be like a super serious book or anything. But like, if you've read this book and enjoyed it, like, that's fine too. Like, I get it. I mean, I read it really quickly. Like, it was a quick read. And I mean, I finished it, obviously. So like, it wasn't good, but like, I don't know. I feel like I don't want to say I've read worse. I mean, maybe I have. But I did go in with like certain ideas and like expectations for this book. Like, I had seen people talking about it, obviously. So I kind of knew what it was about and what was going to happen. And I just had like, I went in with like a certain mindset of knowing that this wasn't going to be a good book. So like, it just kind of met those expectations. Like, I just went in knowing that I wasn't really gonna like it, and like, it was just like, I was just reading it for like entertainment and like just to like talk about it with my cousins who are also gonna read it. But yeah, it just kind of like, it wasn't any worse than what I was expecting it to be. Like, it kind of was what I expected. I'm just a fan of like more realistic and like contemporary stories. I get why people might be entertained or like these books, I guess. I'm just personally not a fan of like anything that isn't realistic for the most part. But yeah, I don't have a rating for this book because I don't really want to compare it to other books that I've read. I will say that a lot of people have talked about how this book is kind of just like all smut and like not really a plot, which there isn't a plot really, like at all. I feel like there was potential for a plot. Like, I was expecting more and then there just like wasn't. This is very much just like a quick like fast-paced read. Like, it has no really like conflicts or like a plot or anything. But I honestly was expecting this book to basically just be all smut. Like, I thought I was just gonna be reading like smut scene after smut scene, you know? I was surprised that it wasn't. Like, there was a lot less than I expected. And I've read books that were like spicier than this one, which I was surprised because I really thought this was going to be like one of the spiciest books I've read. I don't normally rate spice just because I feel like it's so subjective and it changes like based on other books that I've read. Books that I read a year ago that were like a 5 on the spice scale are now like a 3 compared to other books that I've read. So it's just something that would constantly change. So I don't really ever rate spice, but I'll just say that I was surprised that I was like expecting a lot more in this book and like there really wasn't that much compared to what I was expecting. Maybe to some people this would be like a really spicy book and it's like a lot to you. But yeah, I read this book. I'm not planning to read any of the other books. This book was definitely not for me. It's not my usual genre. It's not something I would have ever read. It's not something I plan to continue reading, but I read it and it's fine. I'm just gonna move on from it now and not talk about it again. So then after that, I read a novella. It was called The Perfect View. It's by Maya Hughes, and this is the same author who wrote the Fulton You series. I only read this one because I signed up for her newsletter to get the bonus scenes from the Fulton You series, and so I randomly got like a newsletter email to like download this novella for free, so I just downloaded it, and it was really short, so I just read it really quickly, like within a day. Because it was a novella, it was obviously very fast-paced, kind of insta-love. It was fine, like it was cute. It was just super fast-paced to where I thought it was a little bit like too quick and like too insta-lovey between the two main characters. But basically the two characters work in office buildings like across from each other, so their windows kind of look directly into each other's offices, but it's all in the female main character's perspective, and the male main character is across the street, and basically all the women like in her office, they like to watch him because they think he's like cute, you know? But the guy sees the female main character in the window one day when she had spilled coffee on herself, I think, and then she starts like changing in her office thinking that no one's around because it was like nighttime, everyone had already kind of gone home, and then he sees her changing, and then like a week later she has a presentation for a client and it's his company, and so he comes in and they obviously like see each other like actually face to face for once. So she's kind of embarrassed over what happened. She's kind of been like avoiding him for the past week, and then he's there and she gives her presentation, and afterwards he approaches her and starts talking to her and things happen between them, and then he asks her on a date. That's kind of where like it just kind of goes from there. Like they kind of start dating, but then she has something kind of going on in her life that she's not telling him. And so yeah, that's kind of it. It was super short. It was cute, I guess. Like it did start like really quick. Like it was just very much like there was this instant connection between them, and I thought it was kind of like, I didn't really like that, but once they did like actually start dating, I thought that was like cute. So I don't know, I just like read it because it was free and it was there, and it was by Maya Hughes, who wrote Fulton You. Obviously it wasn't as good as like a full-length book, but it was still just an okay novella overall. But yeah, that's it for this video. If you liked this and you're new to my channel, I would love it if you would stick around and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.